What's up, everyone? Welcome to the 212th episode of the Pokémon Podcast. My name is SBJ, and with me on this Thursday morning at 12:01 a.m. is Micah, the Brave.
Midnight the Brave.
Midnight the Brave. How are you, Micah?
Good. I'm kind of tired.
Me too. We're recording really late, but I wanted to get something out this week before we go back to the normal Sunday recordings, especially since Midwest Gaming Classic was this past weekend and I was unable to record. So here we are. But before we dive into Midwest Gaming Classic and everything, this is just really an episode kind of recapping Midwest Gaming Classic, and Micah is here because Micah was at Midwest Gaming Classic with myself. So we're just going to be recapping that, and I'll just touch on the movie night that I had the other night with some of the Patreon backers and Twitter and Facebook followers. So we'll touch on that. But how was your week, Micah? How was your weekend? How was your week?
My weekend was loaded with classic games and Pokemon.
The classiest of games.
The classiest of classic games. It was good. And then the week's been, just busy and exhausting.
You've been streaming.
I have been. I actually didn't stream tonight because, as you know, I got hung up. And but I streamed last night and we played Quantum Break, which is a very unique and very interesting game.
Are you liking it?
I am.
It's
really interesting.
By the people who did Alan Wake. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yep. Remedy Entertainment. They do something really unique with this game where it's very choice based. So at the end of each chapter, you have about probably 2-3 hours of gameplay, and then at the end of the chapter, you make a crucial decision for the story, and you have two options. You pick one. And then they give you about a 22-minute long live action episode that changes depending on which choices you've made throughout the game. And I'm sure you've seen a lot of the characters are they're acted, like voice acted, and face models for from actual actors. Littlefinger from Game of Thrones is one of them, and I think everybody was saying Iceman from X-Men, but I don't really know who that guy is. So
Mr. Freeze?
It translates really well. Yes, Mr. Freeze from Batman Forever, or is that Batman and Robin? Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I think Batman Forever.
Nice to meet you.
Will Brendel, the biggest Batman fan in the world, is probably yelling at his iPhone right now that we don't know Batman.
Freeze to meet you. No, it's really good though. It's a really unique take on it's an interesting format that I haven't really seen before. And some people really liked it. Some people were kind of like, I don't really want to watch a 22-minute long cutscene. Just let me play the game. But it was kind of neat. I turned off the webcam and I turned off the mic, and we just sat and watched it and talked about it in chat. And it was a good time.
Cool.
So far, so good. It's a very beautiful game.
I have not been playing Quantum Break, but I have been playing a lot of Clash Royale.
The old Clash Regal.
And boy, is that game frustrating. There's like something... I've talked about Clash Royale before on the show, but diving deeper into it and now spending money with it, there's like this commitment now that I have of trying to get good, as the kids would say. And
get good.
And it's funny because I was never a Clash of Clans player. Like, I understand the appeal. I understand the shady business of it. I understand the money sink that it is, and I understand that a lot of people play it without spending any money. I totally get that. I was back in the day a big Simpsons Tapped Out fan, and I think throughout that mobile game lifetime, I probably put $200 or so into it. and it was very like I'm limiting myself to $10 a week. And then it came to like, well, now they added these scratch off tickets, so I'm gonna do one scratch off ticket a day. That's only $1 a day. That's only $7 a week. And if something's on sale, it's on sale, so I can splurge a little this week. I'll put $20. This is how I got to $200. Fast forward to Clash Royale, which is more of a, I'll just explain it, right? It's like a tower offense game, tower defense, but more of taking out their towers in order to win while defending your towers. And you build a deck of 8 different cards, and as you go, you get a lot of free cards in a day. If there's timers for 3-hour chests, and when you open the chests, I think you get like 20 or 30 cards, and you can put those cards and infuse them, and they become stronger, and then your deck overall becomes stronger, and it's player versus player. You're always playing a human. And I think that probably adds a lot to my anger that comes with the game of like, I know that it's a human, and when I make a mistake, like, I feel that like I'm better than this, and I'm better than this person on the other side of the screen. And like when they make a mistake, that feels like really good because, computers usually don't make mistakes, and humans do. And so I've sunk some money into it, which I think is fine. And there's a lot of people that are like, I'll never put money into it. But I think you coming from a Magic background and me coming from a Pokemon background, there's a lot of like, we spent a lot of money all the time to get like 4 cards in our deck that will be
an embarrassing amount of money
that will be obsolete in 3 months or 6 months. Or
yep.
It's like I bought 2 tropical beaches, and they were $100 each for a deck that I ran at a tournament. And then afterwards, those cards dropped to $80, and I was like, well, I could sell them now and take a $40 loss on these 2 cards. And eventually they went up to $120, and then they went back down, they went back up.
Mm-hmm. Well, we talked a little bit about this. I don't remember who it was with. I think it was with our friend Alex, and we were talking about the value, the resale value. And the one thing that I said that I kind of have a problem justifying mobile game stuff like this is that there's not much of there. Even with physical card games, there's always somewhat of a resale value, at least with Magic, especially because they have things like legacy formats where cards that are no longer legal in the most current card set formats, people still run those cards in other formats, so they still have value to some degree. And so even if I get tired of whatever I'm playing, if I get tired of Magic or whatever it is, I can offload everything that I have for at least something, where with a mobile game, I feel like there's no opportunity really to do that. The money's gone, But that being said, you with your incredible ability to convince people to play the mobile games that you're playing. I did over the course of the MGC weekend. I downloaded Clash Royale. I didn't touch it really. I played a little bit of the tutorial, and then Monday, while we were watching Monday Night Raw, I picked it up again and played it, and I've actually been playing it pretty consistently. I haven't put any money into it yet, but I'm actually really enjoying it. It's interesting to me how much it's like Hearthstone.
Yes.
And also how different it is from Hearthstone.
I agree 100% with both your points. And I think that's why I almost like it more than Hearthstone.
Yeah, there are a lot of mechanics that really take that Hearthstone inspiration and then make it its own and make it a new experience and kind of refresh it, which is really nice. But the thing that was the most distinct to me was how uninvested I was going through the tutorial and still pretty generally skeptical while I was playing the tutorial. And then the second that I was playing real people, it hit me and it picked up really fast. It got really like nerve-wracking really quickly. And I started to get really salty.
Yep.
And also really heated about how well I wanted to do.
Yeah, so I've been playing probably for 3 weeks, and I've had the game for a month, and the first the first week, it was kind of the same experience as you. I downloaded it, I played a little bit, and then I was like, ugh, I don't see the appeal. I don't see why it's number one in the App Store. I mean, it's not bad. I just didn't see what made it so special. And then eventually I came back to it just because I was like, there was downtime. I need to do something. Let's try Clash Royale again. And I was like, oh, this chest is done. Oh, look at all these new cards and modifying my deck. And now like I'm winning. And I went through like, less than a week, I got to 1,000 trophies, which is whatever. It is what it is. And then for 2 weeks, I struggled at 1,000 and 1,200. And now in this last week, I've pushed up to 1,800 trophies, which to me was like a huge accomplishment. I felt really good. I almost made it to 2,000 today. I was just a couple trophies shy of that. And then like today during dinner, I dropped down to 1,700, and like I was so frustrated. I was so disappointed in myself that I had like a 300 trophy span, and games usually don't make me that mad. Like I lose all the time to Pokémon on stream, and it's fine. Like I shake my head, I laugh, I play the next game. I'm still having fun. And I'm not saying I'm not having fun with Clash Royale, but like
it has such a competitive
I know I'm right, like I know what I did wrong, and I'm just mad at myself for messing up. Like when I like launch arrows to take out a minion horde and I timed it 1 second too short and my arrows whiff, I like know at that moment in time I just lost the match because of one misplay I just did.
Yeah.
And you kind of get that in Pokemon and Magic, like, oh, I misplayed, I'm probably going to lose. But at the same time, with Pokemon and Magic, you're like, well, I just drew bad. Like, I just didn't start off good. And you don't really get that feeling in Clash Royale. And I think that's why I like it more than Hearthstone, because with Hearthstone, it's like, oh, I drew bad. And in Clash Royale, like, you draw 4 cards and there's 8 cards in the deck. So, like, yeah, you can go, I drew bad, but, like, you're going to see all the cards in, like, the next 20 seconds.
Right. Yeah. And I actually really like that. I like that it cycles through everything. So you see the majority of your deck within the time span of the match, you know?
Yeah.
I really like the style, I guess. I don't know. It's hard to say. It's weird too, because I'm generally not anybody that would be interested in tower defense, but it's just enough of that card game influence to make me want to play it, to get me interested in it, which is surprising for me that I got as into something that's kind of primarily tower defense when that's not something I would ever play, really. And that was the big turnoff for me initially when I was watching you play it and you were telling me about it and stuff. I was like, oh god, tower defense, it's not something that I can really get into. But
did you get that Hog Rider yet?
No Hog Rider yet. Not yet.
Have you faced some Hog Riders?
I don't think so. I mean, I'm still pretty early.
Yeah.
But it's you know, I'm at a point now where I'm playing real people and getting really upset when it's so close that I just barely take out their second tower before time runs out.
Yeah. Well, going back to what I was saying before I ranted, like I sat at 1,000 to 1,200 for almost 2 weeks, and now I don't really fall below 1,700. Like today was the first day in a week I really fell below 1,700, and usually I've been sitting at 1,800, and I got back to 1,800 before the podcast, but I had to like calm myself down and go like look at what you have accomplished in the matter of like 5 to 7 days. Like you made this huge jump, you broke through this wall, you almost made it to 2,000 today, and now you're bumped back down, but like you're not really bumped back down. Like I still made that progress. So like that at the end of the day is kind of exciting, because it's like I do have progress I could show. Like hopefully I can break that 2,000 wall and then get into tournaments and stuff, because like I really like the game, and that's why I don't mind buying new cards, because it's exciting. Like it's cool. It's a great game. And we have a PKMNcast clan in it, and it's full right now. You can have 50 members in a clan. So if you're listening and you're in the clan and you don't play Clash Royale, probably gonna have to kick you out, because
it's very exclusive.
Plus we have like Micah's not even in the clan yet. We have other people that that are not in the clan, and so like got to knock out the inactive people so we can trade them hog riders.
It's called Clash Royale. Okay, it's very exclusive.
The most
regal club.
The most royale of clashes. Speaking of royales, this past weekend was the Midwest Gaming Classic.
It was definitely a kind of a battle royale.
So it took place in Brookfield, Wisconsin, like it does every year. I want to say it's like its 8th or 9th year. I don't think it hit 10, because if it hit 10, they probably would have done something. But I know that it existed a little bit prior to me starting, but this was my 6th year there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it was it was very different compared to a lot of past years. The biggest change of hosting a Pokemon podcast room, as the sign said outside the door, was we were in a different room. We were in the community hall in the quote unquote basement, which the base, it's not really I mean, it is a basement, but it's where all like the smaller conference rooms are.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say there's 2, 3, 4, 5, about 6 rooms down there, and mine's not the smallest, but not the biggest. And there's like 2 rooms that are kind of merged together. That's across the hall. Anyways, we were down
like a showcase hallway, I guess is the best way to describe it. Like, it's mostly rooms that people are showcasing their games or other people's games. You know, like the virtual reality stuff is always in a showcase room, and it's kind of a hallway that you walk down, and on either side, all the way down the hallway, it's just different showcases for different games or independent games, or, you know, stuff like that.
Right. And so we were down there for the last 5 years, and it was great. The room was big. The only, let's say, problem, it wasn't that big of a problem, was there was this huge like conference table in our room that couldn't really leave the room because it was really awkward. It was really big. It was screwed together. Like, it would probably take 4 or 5 people to move it out the door, and then once it got out the door, there was really nowhere to put it because it was so big. But we took advantage of it. We'd put all the TVs on it. We'd move it in different spots. Like, we would always try to do something with it, and you know, there was never a problem. And then I think when we first started having problems with the room was when we started sharing with the Nintendo reps. Because 2 years ago, they approached me and they were like, hey, we want to come to Midwest Gaming Classic. There's no space here. Every single room is taken. We really like what you guys do. Like, obviously, you're doing Pokemon stuff. Would it be cool if we set up like 2 tables in the corner of your room next year and like have a Wii U and have some DSs and do some giveaways? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Like, you guys are from Nintendo. Like, you're not suing me. Of course, like, share the room. And it was awesome. The 2 guys that run it, fantastic, very, very awesome dudes. The problem was, because they were Nintendo, they brought in so much traffic that it really made the room not comfortable to be in. Like, some people want to come in, they want to sit down, they want to play a couple rounds of Pokemon Stadium 2, they want to play, 10-15 minutes of Pokemon Snap, they want to do the Pokemon Pinball, they want to do Poke Park. We have so many different Pokemon games going on, and when you have people just coming in, coming out for the freebies Nintendo is doing, you're blocking the doorway and you're filling the room. And so I think we both realized that, both parties.
Mm-hmm.
And we did it again last year where it was both of us, and it was just almost even worse last year. So we both kind of went to the inviting people this year, and we were like, hey, this was a scenario last year. It was almost like, if you just give us both separate rooms, they could just be a little bit smaller, but like, we obviously can fill them. We've shown you the last 5 years that, our rooms are extremely busy. And so they were like, yeah, sure, cool. Here is a new room. They actually moved the Nintendo guys across the hall into that big room I described earlier, and they got more space. They were still sharing with people, but they definitely got more space. And the Pokemon podcast room got moved upstairs, which was exciting, something different. But the room was significantly smaller. And I think I did the best I could working with the space.
Yeah, you did for what it was. If you didn't make it there, Steve did a really good job with making it spacious for what it was. I mean, imagine all of the rooms on that level and in that block are all hotel rooms that they take the bed out of, they empty it out, and they leave you pretty much nothing, I guess, for you to fill with your tables and your products and stuff like that. And you, for how small it was, you did a really good job of making it spacious.
Yeah, and this year we actually had Pokken Tournament set up. We had Pokemon Stadium 2, Pokemon Snap, the Pokemon pinball machine that myself and Aaron built, and then our merch table. It was more so what we fit in the other rooms minus Pokken. I mean, substitute like Pokemon Stadium 1 or Pokemon Puzzle League or, some other games.
Mm-hmm.
And you made the call of no chairs, which I think was a good call because that would have made the room even more smaller. But I think it also benefited in like, hey, like play some Pokemon Stadium 2, but like don't sit here for 8 hours.
Right.
Especially like
people have a tendency to, if they see that there are chairs, they think, well, I'll just sit here and take a rest. And it's less about, I mean, not saying that people would just come in and just because you have chairs, but they're more inclined to stick around, I think, if you do, because it's someplace that they can rest from walking around all day.
Yeah. And we've had past years downstairs where people have spent more than 4 to 5 hours in the room.
Yeah.
At a time. And it blows my mind. Well, first, let me back up. It's flattering that they find my room to fit their needs. I get it. It's awesome. Cool. At the same time, you just paid, $40 to $60 for the weekend. There is more than enough to see here.
Right.
Why are you dedicating so much time to,
Because you had chairs, man.
I had chairs, but, I'm not... Pokemon Stadium 2 is not that rare of a game.
It blew my mind that even after we had that conversation about chairs and wound up not putting chairs in the room, there were people who would still come in and just sit on the floor.
Yeah.
Like, at the end of the day, I guess maybe it didn't matter if there were chairs or not. People will sit wherever they want.
So how'd you... We'll come back to the Pokemon podcast room, but how did you feel overall about the con? You probably walked around more than I did just because I had to stay stationed at the booth, but how'd you feel the con was?
I liked it. It's good. I mean, I've been going to it for a long time, and I always enjoy it because it's the same experience, and you kind of know what to expect. You know to expect that there's going to be some really cool old stuff there that you've either never seen in person, or you have never, or you haven't played in a long time, or something like that, something from your childhood that you haven't seen in forever. And the vendor hall, I think last year or the year before, was the first time that they started doing a tent outside for the vendor hall instead of inside.
I think this is the third year they did it. Yeah, because this is the first year where the tent was like the biggest it's ever been.
Yeah.
But I remember both years they had the tent prior, it was rainy and flooded.
Yep. And the tent's nice. It is a good place for people to walk around and see the vendors and stuff like that. But all in all, it's generally always the same experience with some new little surprises that you find along the way. So it's nice being able to, when you're anticipating MGC and you're getting ready for it and you're looking forward to it, you know exactly what it's going to be, and it's comforting going to it, and it's exactly what you were anticipating. That being said, I said a couple times this weekend, and even to other friends of mine who were there that have been going for a long time as well, that Midwest Gaming Classic, I think, has drastically outgrown that facility, that location. It's the fact that they have to keep increasing the size of the tent that they have outside is a clear indicator that it's too big for the Brookfield Hotel.
Yeah.
I think it needs to be somewhere where people can have access to everything pretty quickly, because everything's really, really spread out in a really awkward way with how big it's grown. There's a lot of the stuff that you see is really cool, as always. I saw, I don't know if you saw this, but when I was walking around, they had in a glass case the Nintendo PlayStation, the like one remaining copy of it, the actual console. They had it in like a glass case, and that was really cool to see because I've never seen that before. And I picked up a couple things, it was very cool. It's obviously you can't play it, but
Was one of those gems you were hinting at earlier the guy selling the Pokemon ROMs?
I mean, that's something that I hadn't seen yet. I don't think I've seen some, ROM hacks before, but I think the last few years up until this year, I hadn't really been paying attention to like gray area as far as legality goes on like games that are available in the vendor hall. But this one caught my eye mostly just because they had the Twitch Plays Pokemon anniversary cartridge, which was pretty cool, like the physical cartridge, and I wound up picking that up. But they had a lot of them. They had a ton of them, which were a lot of fan made games that I've seen before, but all on really generic Game Boy cartridges or Game Boy Advance cartridges.
There's absolutely no way that there is any legal merit to any of that.
That can't be legal, right?
Right. And if you think
I know that the Twitch Plays Pokemon cartridge was available for a while now. Like it was, they did it for the first the 1 year anniversary, and it was sold online. And I'm sure that Nintendo saw that and didn't do anything about it. So, I mean, that one in specific, I guess, maybe. I don't know why that would be much of a difference, though,
There was probably 20 to 30 easily different types of ROM, whether it was like Pokemon Sky Dark version or Pokemon Brown or Pokemon Sweet Dreams or Pokemon Rayquaza Emerald version,
Pokemon Glazed.
And like you said, like some of those you saw before, and I cannot imagine that this guy went and grabbed these ROMs, like whoever made Pokemon Brown, and was like, I grab this ROM, I put it into a Game Boy cartridge, I print out a sticker, I stick the sticker on, I make up a box to put it in, and I sell it for $40 because I think every single ROM hack was $40. Would put money on it that the person who made those ROMs are not seeing a penny.
Right. Absolutely. It can't be like the only reason that I think the Twitch Plays Pokemon version was a different scenario is because they had very specific packaging for the one that was sold in conjunction with the actual Twitch Plays Pokemon anniversary, like a sleeve that had embossed printing and, something that none of the other ones had, really.
Yeah.
And even then, it was marked up for sure from what it was sold online for. So my guess, at least from being there, was that the guy bought some on Etsy or wherever it was that they sold them, and then just sold them along with his other ROMs and marked it up $10 or whatever it is that he marked it up. As far as the legality goes, it's amazing to me that Nintendo hasn't done anything. I mean, maybe this guy is an anomaly, but I have to think that if he's doing it, multiple people at multiple different retro game conventions all over the States are probably also doing it. And the fact that Nintendo is a company that will go onto YouTube or whatever and copyright strike people for reviewing their games or whatever it is, and there's nothing that's been done about this, and this guy could just be there out in the open selling stuff that was clearly infringing on an IP,
right,
was kind of mind-blowing.
Yeah, and I'm not saying like whoever made Pokemon Brown, obviously this guy grabbed it, put it on a cartridge, now selling it for $40. Person who made Pokemon Brown isn't seeing a penny. Maybe, but I highly doubt it because there were so many different ROM versions. And this goes back to there was, 30 different ROM versions. Like the guy selling it, I guarantee you the guy selling it didn't make these ROM versions. Like he grabbed them from somewhere, dumped them, started selling them. And to
absolutely.
to the legality issue, there's no way that like that would be like me taking Banjo-Kazooie and like switching out Kazooie to be a Pidgeot and then switching out Banjo to be a bear ticking when like $40, here's your Pokemon Kazooie game, come get it, hot off the presses. You just can't do that.
It's almost like, I guess what I would almost equate it to is if someone made an album of cover songs or something and they released it for free because they didn't want to infringe on the original artist's work. They released it for free online and weren't making any money from it. And then somebody who downloaded it then burned it to a bunch of CDs and took it somewhere and started selling it like that. That's kind of the, because you can have ROM hacks and distribute them online for free because, you know, it's essentially fan art, or to some degree it's I feel like it falls under the same category. It's, you know, it's a piece of fan work and you're not making any money from it. It's not anything that you're taking money from Nintendo for. So for this guy to then take that and copy it all, having done pretty much no work, and then sell it is pretty shady.
Yes. And it almost blows my mind even more that when you're I don't know the extent of how to sign up for a vendor booth, because the vendors do a different process than the people doing rooms. And so when you sign up to be a vendor, what do you say you're selling? I'm just selling hacked Pokemon games here for $40 a piece. I know it's not legal, but you know, I'll be right over here. That cool? Awesome. Cool.
Well, and they were selling a bunch of other stuff. So I think they probably weren't completely clear on everything they were going to be selling. Like they had a section of plushies and, you know, all kinds of stuff that towards the end of the day, one of the things that I noticed is towards the end of the day and towards the beginning of the day, almost all of the ROM hack stuff was either covered up or it wasn't out yet. And when we were going around the vendor halls and everything was packed up, way before everybody else was packed up, that guy had all of the ROM hacks packed up. And that kind of made me feel like he knew he probably wasn't supposed to be selling the stuff there. But again, you know, I'm sure some of the people at MGC that run MGC probably didn't really know or care either, you know?
Right. Because I've been to C2E2 and like I've walked up and down the aisles and you see VHSs that are clearly knockoff VHSs.
Yeah.
All in a row, and it's the same thing, and it's like how are you selling knockoff VHSs? It's such a big event, but like who's going to say something? I guess with Midwest Gaming Classic, I mean, like who cares about a VHS? It's like I think they sell them for like $9 or $10 or something, and whoever's buying them is absolutely insane because it's a VHS. But I don't know, $40 for a ROM hack that you can play online for free, just so you can play it in your Game Boy and your Game Boy Advance, and like know in the back of your head that like the guy selling it is not the guy who created it.
Right.
Just like it irks me more than losing at Clash Royale.
Yeah, it's pretty shady. It really is.
Like you said, it's like fan art, but when like I'm buying a Pokemon print from an artist, it's very cool to be like, oh, you did this, like you did this art, you put the time into it. Like, yeah, you don't own the copyright to Bulbasaur, and yeah, you're probably only selling them at these shows, and you're probably gonna make, you know, a couple bucks. But like to me, it's like I'm not buying it because I'm buying it because I like it and because it's something I like Pokemon. But like I'm more of like, here's the money for your time and your art, not so much like here's some money for ripping off somebody.
And that's a really good analogy for it. It's like if you were running an art booth and you went online and Googled Pokemon fan art and then printed out a bunch of stuff and sold prints. Like that's pretty much what this guy's doing.
Yeah, that was probably the most shocking thing at Midwest Gaming Classic.
However, let me say that's one specific instance amongst everything else that's going on there and in the vendor hall and stuff like that. I don't want that to overshadow the fact that there are a lot of really, really awesome vendors there too. And a lot of really amazing, independent projects that people have booths in the vendor hall to sell and showcase their own work too. Like one of the things that I saw that was A, really awesome, and B, really kind of a perfect fit for this convention was I think the company is called Retrotainment, or maybe Cash In Culture, but they had a game called Haunted Halloween 85, and it was a retro, like an 8-bit Nintendo retro game that they made, and they released it only on NES cartridges that they bought, and they published it as a Nintendo game, as an NES game, to like this year. And I thought that was really cool, and it was also a really, really good fit for that convention, because not only is it a new game, but it also has all of the culture that you find at Midwest Gaming Classic, or that people go to Midwest Gaming Classic for. And they had a really cool booth in the vendor hall. They were really, really nice guys, and it's unfortunate that you then go to other portions of the vendor hall and you see some of the shadier things happening.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, too. I mean, I'm guessing the guy that was selling the rom-hacks and stuff probably walked away with way more money than those guys did. But,
can't win them all.
Can't win them all. That being said, though, there is a lot of really awesome stuff going on in the vendor hall, aside from the shady stuff that's going on, too.
Yeah, it's an interesting show, and it like you said earlier, it's gotten way bigger. I think the space, it's been said probably for 3 years straight now, like the space is too small for the amount of people that it draws in. Having a new room was refreshing, but it was also frustrating. Mm-hmm. It was like, we know how busy this convention is, and now we're with a smaller room. Like, it's great that we're in a different room to just to mix things up and to try something different, but this room is too tiny. And I don't know, I think I was telling Irene this, and my friend Kay, and I gotta give a shout out to Kay, because Kay comes all the way from Michigan. He's been coming since I started going to the Midwest Gaming Classic. This is sixth year. He hasn't missed it. The last 2 years, he's helped me set up. He's helped me tear down. He brings an extra TV in case I need it. He brings extra Pokemon games and Nintendo 64. He brought his Wii U this year so we could hook up Pokken and have like 2 Pokkens connected through Ethernet, which probably on our next episode I'll explain what a headache that was. But big shout out to Kay. Like, what a great dude. And I know he listens to the podcast, but like, just got to give him a shout out. What I was saying to them was like, it's so weird, and it could just be because the convention's gotten so big, or the convention is very what to expect. Like, these guys are always here, those guys are always there, like these vendors always return. Pokemon podcast is always downstairs in the basement, but like, what to expect. So like the first 2 or 3 years, I felt like our room was so podcast focused, where people would come in, they would ask about the podcast, they would grab a business card, we would sell some t-shirts or some buttons or some stickers related to the podcast. Some people would stay for Pokemon Stadium, some people would do some Pokemon Snap. Like, there was a real good ebb and flow in the room. This year, it was almost like none of that. I don't know many people that came in to like specifically ask about the podcast. Like, when you're sitting in the room and you see people walk by, you always hear like, Midwest Gaming Pokemon Podcast. Oh, that's where the Pokemon stuff is. And they would either come in or they would keep walking. And obviously it's normal. Like, not in a Pokemon, you're not going to come in. Maybe I'm putting too much emphasis on playing old Pokemon games or playing Pokken, where I don't know, like I'm there for the podcast at the end of the day.
Right.
And people playing Pokken is really cool, but like they're not walking out with a business card. And I'm not telling people to come in and like buy a shirt, buy these $2 shirts because I'm trying to get rid of them because the pun is no longer funny. But there's something that kind of like deep down bothers me that like these are my TVs, these are my Wii U's, this is my game, this is my controller, like everything is mine, and people come in and they play it and they leave and cool, they have a smile on my face, but like my enjoyment would have been like, oh, you're on a podcast, can I get a business card? And it's like maybe if I take all that away and just have the room, and we talked about this, Micah and I talked about this, of like, do I even want to do this next year? Like, to bring all my stuff is one thing, to like keep people entertained and to like be there, but like to dedicate my time is also probably more valuable than any of that.
Right.
Like to spend the entire day Friday setting up, to spend the entire day Saturday, like I have to be there by 9, I have to stay there till 8. I have friends that coming out of town for this, and like, yeah, we can get dinner and we can maybe do 1 or 2 things, but then I got to go to bed because I got to do it all again on Sunday. And it's like, well, Sunday it ends at 5, we can do more. And it's like, well, no, I got to tear down, and I'm completely exhausted after that. And it's like on Monday, I just want to sleep in because I have 0 sleep. And the week up to that is just me planning, making sure I have like change and all the cables and stupid stuff that I probably would have forgotten even if I made a huge list. 50 hours, more than 72 hours of my week to go into watching somebody play Pokken and walking out. Is that worth my time?
Yeah, and when we talked about it, that's kind of what I was saying. I mean, I have a little bit of a different opinion of it because I mean, I think I've brought it up when I was on the show way back, but that's MGC is how I found you. Like, that's how I found the podcast. That's how I started listening. What was it, 3 years or however long ago now? Like, that was the first time that I saw you in the Midwest Gaming Classic, and I was so amazed that somebody had a room entirely dedicated to Pokemon, and I grabbed that little card. That's how I started listening to the podcast. So I can see that some people can find the podcast that way, and that's great that there are some people that are maybe finding it that didn't know that it existed before, like I did. But for the most part, it seems like the last couple years, MGC has really just become, it's mostly just become a vendor hall and kind of like a museum showcase where people sometimes go to show off their product or, you know, their project or whatever it is that they're coming to showcase, like you do with the Pokemon podcast and that fighting game. Those guys have been there multiple years now. They do it's kind of like old school Mortal Kombat games where it's like live action animation. Those guys have been there so many years, and I have to wonder how many people even talk to them about their project anymore, and how many people just come in just to play it. All of those rooms in the block that you were in this year, it's almost like anybody that's there checking anything out, it's just a museum to them. They come in, they look around, they play it, they don't talk to the person who's running the room, and then they leave and they move on to the next room. And it's you know, I guess it's almost like that culture just doesn't seem to really fit the maker culture, I guess, anymore.
So yeah, it's weird. Like it pains me to be like, I don't want to do MGC because I feel like MGC is like one of like the things that Pokemon podcast does every year. I speak at C2E2 every year, and I absolutely love that. And I go to MGC and I run a room where people come in and they're like, this is really cool. And hopefully they leave with knowing that I run a podcast, or like I try to do cool things. Right. And I didn't feel that at all this year. And that's not to say like I had people come in that have come in from years to year and they're like, love the show. This episode was really funny, or I liked when you told that wrestling story, or like there were a handful of people that did that, and that means the world to me. Like it feels so great to like meet somebody in person that goes, I listened to your show and I enjoy it. And it's like, wow, awesome, cool. Like, this is why I'm here for the weekend. But that was so far and few between compared to last year's. It was just
right.
It was very heavy.
And really, I think, it kind of fuels my opinion that it needs to move. It needs to be somewhere that feels more like a convention and less like a showcase, because that's really all it is now. Even when they have people, doing talks and stuff like that, it's in a bar. It's at the bar in a restaurant inside the hotel restaurant that's open to the entire hallway, and so many people are walking through that nobody is paying attention to the talks. And the few people that are paying attention to the talks probably can't hear what they're saying very well. It's probably not a really good environment for having a talk, or, and I think if it went somewhere else and it was kind of refreshed, that would help it a lot. Unfortunately, I don't think that that's really, after 15 years of this, I don't think that that's really going to happen. It feels like it's always going to be walking into a museum, an interactive museum, buying stuff that is in some cases kind of questionable, and just walking through a hotel hallway. If they could change that, I could see that being really beneficial to people like yourself or other makers who want to show off their products or their projects. But until there's some sort of change in the format, it's just not conducive to getting people interested, I guess, because they're not there to be interested in something. They're there to play the same, play old pinball stuff that they haven't seen in a long time, or play old Super Nintendo games that they haven't seen in a really long time. Or in a lot of cases, it's parents who are not really there to, see anything new. Their whole reason for being there is that they're bringing their kids to show them the games that they played when they were a kid, and they're not there to be interested in new projects or, stuff like that. And I guess it, to some degree, some of it is not going to change, and that's probably okay for a lot of the people there. But a lot of the consumers that are there, but the people that are actually running it, or the people that are actively involved in it, like yourself and like the haunted Halloween guys and stuff like that, it's not really conducive to them for what their reason for being there is.
Yeah, I already have like a million things running through my head of like next year, like what am I going to do next year? Am I going to go back next year? And it's like, well, I feel like I can't get my old room back. I feel like that's off the table, because it's like, why would the people that are now in it give it up?
Right.
I think about this smaller room, and I think about what went wrong and what went right in the past. And there's a couple things that like I think matter, like obviously advertising my podcast and like making sure that people know that, like you said it when you were outside the door, this is the Pokemon podcast room, and I think the podcast gets forgotten when you walk in.
Yeah.
But like I do have the arcade machine that I built, the pinball machine.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is a showpiece that sticks out at any convention I would take it to.
Right.
I think maybe marrying the fact that like I've worked with a ton of artists before, and I'm sure those artists would like to get their work out, and I would be more than happy to be like, let's build a wall inside this room of all your guys' art and let me sell it for you, and like give back to the artists that have done stuff for me in the past. Like I think that would be really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Because running Pokemon Stadium 2 every year is just not working.
And there were a lot of people that came in that were excited about, seeing the art that was there and the stickers and stuff like that. There were a couple people who were specifically really excited about the Splatoon Pokemon mashup stickers. And that was really cool to see. And you still did have, a good handful of people that came in and were either listeners or hadn't heard about it before and were asking questions about it and stuff like that. The two things that stick out in my mind were the dad with his son and daughter who came in, and they were referencing old jokes from the podcast, and you were like, it's always surreal to me that people remember, or when people are telling me jokes that come from the podcast in person. And then the kid and his mom who came in, and they'd said that they, listened to the podcast and stuff like that. And that the one kid who specifically was asking for information on, what was it, shiny Ralts, I think it was.
Yeah, he was trying to figure out how to get a shiny Ralts.
Shout out to that kid.
There's no easy answer for that.
So it's really cool to see that from the volunteer side of the Pokemon podcast room. But when it's all said and done, I think maybe the takeaway is that it comes across more as like a showcase, I guess. And that's just generally the show, I think. I don't know that that's necessarily just on your part, but just the culture of that show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Whereas, 4 years ago, it wasn't so much like that.
Right.
Well, to be honest, I didn't think we'd be talking this long about Midwest Gaming Classic, but
I had a lot to say about old MGC.
You put Micah and I in a room, we could talk forever.
It's true.
About anything.
We'll just never shut up.
I do want to touch on, Micah was not here for this. I think you were streaming. I forget what you were streaming. But
last night?
Tuesday night.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was Quantum Break.
Yeah, Quantum Break. I ran a Pokemon movie night. I ran that on a service called Rabbit. Have you heard of Rabbit, Micah?
I have. We actually, I have a Discord server for viewers of the Twitch channel, my Twitch channel, and we have a specific section in the Discord server called Squared Circle, and we occasionally will watch wrestling on Rabbit together. And it works well.
Irene discovered Rabbit about a month ago, and she uses it like every single night, watching with other people. So for our listeners that don't know how it works, Rabbit, it's RABB.IT. That's the website, but they pronounce it Rabbit because they reached out to me and I talked with them a little bit. But the host, let's just say me, would log into Rabbit. I would pick something to watch, and it can auto-connect to YouTube. I believe it can connect to Netflix. It can connect to HBO Go. I don't know how or why this is legal, by the way.
I have the same question.
Speaking of legality, because I know when you buy a DVD, you get the warning that says only you can watch this DVD because you purchased the viewing license of the DVD.
I'm not totally sure here. We were talking about this when WrestleMania was coming up, because the people that I typically watch wrestling with were like, oh, we should watch WrestleMania together on Rabbit. And I was like, well, it doesn't say that, the network is something that you can pull up through Rabbit. But when you're in Rabbit, you're essentially just using a browser. So I don't know if you can just look at anything. You should, I would imagine, be able to just go anywhere, right?
Yeah, I think so. Because when you hit the Hulu button, it just brings up Google Chrome.
Right. Just brings up a browser.
Yeah, so I don't know exactly how it works. But anyways, so if I'm the host, I bring up a movie, and then I get a link, and then I send that link out, and people click it, and then they join the room. And once they join your Rabbit room, there's a chat window on the side that everyone can start chatting in. But you can also have the option to turn on everyone's voice, or if the person wants their voice on, and a video feed of them. So if you're watching the movie, you can have like everyone's video face at the bottom, and everyone could be talking over the movie and stuff. And I didn't want that for our first Rabbit. We just kept it to chat. But on Tuesday we watched Pokemon Arceus and the Jewel of Life. It was the first time I saw that movie, and there was Rabbit can hold 25 people, I believe. And we had a turnout of about 17 people, give or take, a couple that came in and came out late or, had to leave early. But it was really fun. It was, I will probably do a whole episode later dedicated on the movie itself. And I think you guys have enjoyed that in the past when I did a whole episode for What's the Rayquaza Destiny Deoxys, and then I did one for the Victini movie. So I'll probably do one for Arceus and the Jewel of Life, just not today. But yeah, so people came in for Rabbit. We watched the movie. We chatted. There was a lot of jokes that came out of it. It was really fun. Like, it was the movie is 90 minutes, and boy did time just fly by. It was really, really awesome. Everyone in the chat was really cool. Everyone was really funny. I was laughing the entire time. The movie itself was actually really good. One of the better Pokemon movies. I would argue with anyone that it was very good. Not a lot of Ash, but a lot of Pokemon. And that's all you can ask for in a Pokemon movie, really.
That's the formula for the perfect Pokemon movie.
Minimize Ash. Bring up the Totodiles. Yeah, it was a good movie. It was a good time. We will be probably doing another Rabbit Pokemon movie night. Let me pull up my calendar real quick. I just want to make sure that I get you guys the right date.
For the record, I just pulled it up just to see, and it is just a browser. Then you can go anywhere on it.
Okay. Yeah,
you can pull up whatever you want.
Do not know how that is legal, but okay.
It's essentially screen sharing, but on like a larger scale, I guess.
Yeah.
And not with your own computer.
So we will be doing another movie night on Friday, April 22nd. So about a week from when this podcast is published. It will probably be around 8 to 9 p.m. Central Time. I don't know the exact time, but we'll do it on the Friday night so more people can attend, because obviously Tuesday night was it's a weird night to stream a movie.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll do it on Friday night. It's limited to 24 people because obviously me being the host counts as one of the 25. The $10 backers on Slack, the community backers, will get first access. I think there's 10 of them. And then the rest of the Slack will get access to the movie night, first come, first serve. And then if that doesn't fill up, we'll send the link to Twitter and Facebook. So like I said, we had to turn out about 18 people last time, very last minute, but it was a lot of fun. And everyone in chat was like, let's watch another movie right now. And I was like, no, guys, there are only 18 Pokemon movies. We cannot burn through all of them in one night. We got to space this out.
Got to minimize it.
Less is more. Yeah, so if you're interested in watching a Pokemon movie and participating in hilarious jokes, I think I'm funny sometimes. April 22nd will be our next movie night. And yeah, stuff like this wouldn't really be possible without our Patreon backers. So I want to give them a shout out.
It's a really cool thing too. You know, it's something that I found recently too, and it's a really cool way to connect with people.
And if there's any other Pokemon podcast trying to stream movies over Rabbit, I just want to lay it out here that we did this first. I will burn that bridge right now.
They'll probably watch all the movies with more Ash in them.
Yeah, they'll watch the Celebi movie. Actually, that
was a point of contention in the car during Milwaukee, the Midwest Game Classic.
The Celebi movie's not good.
It got pretty heated.
I mean, the end of the movie redeems the first terribleness that we called the first 30 minutes.
I just really like Celebi, and that's really all that I have for that discussion.
I mean, it is an onion. No one's debating you there.
Good old onion Pokemon.
Yeah,
man,
so
they really ran out of ideas.
So if you're interested in watching a Pokemon movie, you have any questions, you can hit me up on Twitter, you can DM me in Slack. Either one of those options is fine, but mark your calendars for April 22nd. Hopefully we can fill the room this next time, and then in times in the future. I could keep talking tonight. I'm on an energy high at 1 a.m., but we should wrap it up, because I only told you, Micah, that it'd be a half hour, but here we are rambling.
I mean, I'm in the same position. This is like my 9 a.m. So shout out to all the third shifters that are wide awake right now.
What's on your agenda for the weekend? You streaming some more?
I'm gonna try and finish Quantum Break tomorrow, I think.
Give us a
technically
date.
today,
This
I
is
guess.
podcast form.
Thursday night, I'm gonna try and finish Quantum Break. I believe it's only about an 8 to 9 hour game, and we put about 5 or 6 in Tuesday night, so I think we can probably finish it in one night, and I'm looking forward to finishing that. And then I kind of want to check out the new Ratchet and Clank. I've seen a lot of other people playing it, and I've never really been interested in the series before, but it's kind of a reboot, so I feel like this is a good entry point.
I was kind of itching to play it, but I think I'll just wait for the movie.
Is it like a movie game? I guess I don't totally understand what's going on here.
So the new Ratchet and Clank game is based on the movie that comes out at the end of the month.
Right.
But the movie is based on the very first Ratchet and Clank game.
Okay.
The movie is based on the game, but the game is based on the movie.
Got it. Really confusing, but I got it.
They're very, from what I've heard from reviews and other podcast discussion, the game is very self-aware that it is based on a movie, which is based on a game, which is ultimately a remake, but not quite a remake because it's based on a movie.
It sounds like my kind of confusion.
Yes.
So I may do that, but Dark Souls 3 also came out yesterday.
I heard that was having a lot of problems.
It is. That's kind of why I'm staying away from it for the time being. Because the things that I've been playing the most in the last couple months have been Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 2, because I had never completed them before. And I wanted to finish them before 3 came out. So when 3 came out, a lot of the viewers were like, well, why aren't you playing Dark Souls 3? But I've heard that a lot of people are having some known glitch issues with the game. So I'm going to kind of maybe wait that out until some of that stuff is patched. But that's on the horizon as well. Of course, next week is Star Fox Zero. So that may be a thing.
may be a thing. Ooh.
We'll see.
Well, if you guys are listening to this on Thursday sometime, because this episode will come out on Thursday, April 14th, I will be streaming Pokémon Tournament again, like I have been every Thursday. Me and my boy Blaziken have kicked Machamp to the curb. If you want to...
Gotta get on that Sceptile game, man.
No, screw Sceptile. Christmas Tree City. So if you want to join in on that, that will be on Twitch. Starts at 8 p.m. Central Time. The VS code is just PKMNcast all lowercase. And we usually have a good turnout for that. We usually have 20 or so people playing Pokémon Tournament with us. And I lose a lot, but it's still fun. Definitely getting better at that. We will be back for Dungeons and Dragon Nights on Tuesday. Greg will return from his honeymoon. That will be Tuesday, April 19th. So at 7 p.m. Central Time, that'll be episode 7 of Dungeons and Dragon Nights, and we're kind of pinning down about 10 to 12 episodes of that. Depending on how much of story we get through per episode, we'll refine that. And then once that season is over, we'll take a month or so off and just kind of rework things for season 2, because that has been a little more successful than I originally imagined. And it does very well in iTunes, which is great, because other people have found it super effective because of Dungeons & Dragons Nights, just because it's hitting a different audience.
It's unique. It's a very, very unique take on just standard Dungeons & Dragons.
Yeah, I think it's fun to do. I look forward to it. But it's like crazy, because I'm like reading off this calendar of like, we're doing this on Tuesday, we're doing this on Thursday, and on Friday we're doing this movie night, and it's like Pokemon Podcast is doing a lot of things a week now.
Yep.
Which is a little exhausting. I have to get my Final Fantasy 14 and my Destiny and my Clash Royale, and I got to get this all in before Pokemon Sun and Moon. But I think that will wrap things up for today's show. I mean, I could keep talking, but I got to edit this and get it out to you guys, so I think that's kind of important as well.
Editing?
Who needs to edit? We just, no edits, put it up, call it raw. That's raw comedy you're hearing right here. We don't want to edit out our raw, but
raw content. Just it's the best.
I'm not going to harsh on any podcast. But if you say that you do not want to edit because you think that raw comedy is funnier, I hate to break it to you.
Just clean it up a little bit. That's all.
Right. That's to any podcast. That is not picking on any specific topic or genre. That is to any podcast. Like, editing is super important.
It's just professionalism. Just make it sound professional.
This is the part of the podcast where I purposely put in like huge like blank space between us talking, and then it sounds like really awkward. Well, I think that wraps it up. Micah, where you're a Twitch streamer, where can our listeners watch your face?
You can find me behind the bar at the tavern, usually five nights a week, Monday through Friday, starting around 8 p.m. Central Time at twitch.tv/Micah the Brave. And you can also find me on Twitter at twitter.com/Micah the Brave. That's where I'm at usually.
If you want to follow the podcast on Twitter, it is going to be at Pokemon Podcast. That's going to be the best way to stay up to date with news and information regarding the show and what's going on and movie night stuff. And you can follow me on Twitter at Dragging Lake. And if you haven't done so already, before I let you go, I try not to make these endings long anymore because, sometimes people are like, oh, he's doing the ending. Time to cut it off. No one needs to hear that fantastic end credits. That is now different, by the way. But if you
wouldn't know that unless you stick around.
That's right. But if you haven't done so already, I would appreciate you to leave a review in iTunes for the show. It helps other people find the show. It helps boost us in iTunes. We've been doing really well. We want to keep that momentum going for Pokemon Sun and Moon. So that would help a lot to just leave a review. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for listening. We will be back on our normal schedule this coming week. So expect a show on Monday, the 18th of April. Expect one around there. I'm not sure morning or night. Depends on when we get that recorded and edited, but expect it around that date. Normal schedule. I am at Dragon Lake on Twitter. Micah's at Micah the Brave on Twitter. This has been another episode of the Pokemon Podcast, and we are
super effective.